And we're in South Bend, Washington, that is. Yeah. Not everybody knows where South Bend is, I guess.
I ran into everybody at the gal the other day. Did I tell you where was that at? And I said something about South Bend, and she said Indiana, and I said no, South Bend. She said, well, I'm from South Bend, Indiana.
And
you were on? When I was on Packsack for 4 years.
You were on Packsack from what years?
52 through 55.
Okay.
Yeah. Where is Packsack generally located?
It's up on the hill above Brooklyn, Washington, North River.
And was that a Department of Natural Resources lookout?
That time it was the Division of Forestry.
But it was Raymond District.
Yeah, in the Raymond District.
Raymond District Division of Forestry. Okay, very good. And who was your supervisor?
Head one was Walt Swenson, and his assistant was Gene Little. And then I had this little old guy out in the valley named Andy Ivenick, who was my warden.
His last name.
Why wouldn't I? Who brought me up water, which wasn't really good, so whenever we could get by with it and Gene would come up, we'd sneak back down to the river and get our own because it was fresher. We did that several times without Andy knowing it.
But Andy had Andy's bar.
Yeah, he had
still got the name on it,
Brooklyn
I guess.
Tavern.
Brooklyn
Yeah.
Tavern.
He ran for years. He finally, it hasn't been all that many years ago that he died. He was an old man when he was on the lookout, so he must have been really old when he died.
Well, whatever possessed you to decide to be a lookout?
She possessed me.
Well, actually, no.
I didn't know what it was even.
Our brother Don signed up to be a lookout. And just
Is that how it started?
Just before the season started, he decided he couldn't spend a whole summer without girls.
Oh.
And so I talked him into letting me apply for his job, and I got it.
And how old were you at that time?
I was
Probably 20.
Okay.
almost.
Anyway, he didn't date all summer.
Between my junior and senior year, I think. Anyway, my dad said, and I quote, "You're not going up the woods all by yourself." So me, big-hearted me, I said, "I'll go with her."
I thought you were.
I didn't even know what a lookout was. I had no idea what a lookout was.
Oh,
And
I
we're
didn't
driving up here, and this is this big tower thing, and I'm thinking, I'm going to live in that thing and run up and down those stairs? Nah.
That's not what offended
And
me.
after a week or so, you're running up and down like a squirrel. Nothing bothers you. Hanging over the railing. You're pulling wood up over the railing. You know. Don't have any better sense. However, I did draw the line at what some of the gals in one of those lookouts that I had pictures one time of. I finally threw them away because they disgusted me. They were sitting on the railing, straight on the railing, you know, just holding on with his one hand.
Showing off.
And showing off, yeah.
Oh, dear.
It was so stupid. 40 feet off the ground, and they're taking a chance of falling off that railing.
I'd never seen a lookout either, and when we going up the hill, we went through a big burn area. Those grotesque burnt stumps with holes through them, and it was really ugly. But after we were up there for a while, it was pretty. And we used to hike down there.
Yeah, it was really bare when
Watch the
those first
pigeons.
few years. And we've been up there since over the years, and now you can't even find where the lookout was, except that we got down on our hands and knees, my sons and I, and scrunched around and found the cement slabs that had held up the post. Of course, I tore the lookout down and burned up what was left, the rats. And but we did retrieve a piece of glass, which is incorporated in the glass of my thing there. I don't know who built it. I assume the forester did. It
No,
was
this
40
one.
feet tall.
This
Oh, is that back
Oh,
there?
that, you mean my little thing.
Yeah.
Okay, and a kid that was on trip named Bob Jones, and his father worked for the forestry in Olympia. And I always loved miniatures, I always have it. And I used to sit and think, oh, I wish I had something to build a miniature of my tower with. One day this guy writes me a letter, he said, "I've been sitting here killing time, how would you let me make a miniature of your tower?" And I said, God's heard my handmade prayer. So I sent him all kinds of pictures and all kinds of descriptions, and it's been changed a little bit over the years because it's all those many years and traveling around, it's been banged a few times, and we did the railings because he used all cedar originally, and it was warping and getting out of shape. So my son and I redid a little of it and used balsa or something or other on it instead. And he had never. My husband, it drove my husband nuts because where the chimney come down to the stove, he never had made a connection there. So you had just the stove sitting there, going nowhere, and the trap door didn't open and a few other things. So when we redid it, we fixed the chimney all the way through and fixed the trap door with a rope to hold it up and the whole.
So inside there,
and it's got all this furniture. I even made the sleeping bag out of an original sleeping bag.
You had a trap door underneath there.
Yeah, we came up through a trap door. A lot of the more modern ones, they had the stairs come on up and you come around.
But there was a big rope hanging down through the trap door so that you could lift it from ins.
With a weight on it, yeah.
With a weight. And the mice, the hole was a lot bigger than the rope, and the mice went up and down there like it was a bridge for them. So we trapped, what, a dozen
My son even made my little logbook there, and you see that tiny, tiny little pencil?
We trapped
He's
some
really good at making. He made all this footing on here too, all that pretty greenery and whatever's down below. And
We trapped so many mice that the spring on the mount strap wouldn't kill them anymore. Just held them until we could take them out. So we had a box full of them, and they kept getting out all the time.
of course, the one day I pulled my drawer out and I had these little casserole dishes in there. There was this little nest in there with a mama with about 14 babies on. And then I must have disturbed her because she killed them all. That made me mad, so I threw her right off the thing because I didn't like anything hurting the baby. Then I got thinking later, oh, that was awful. That poor thing, 40 feet. I never defined her body, so I don't know, maybe it didn't kill her.
Probably didn't,
But it was awful.
remember the time the one we buried head first in this big jar of strawberry jam?
Yes.
It drowned in the jam, we just buried the whole thing.
But I did make a pet of a pack rat. I never had any real tame mice, but I found a baby pack rat one time, and I made a pet out of it. And when I wrote to Ray Kressick about what was going on there, I was telling about my different animals. He said, well, he used to have a magpie that sat on his shoulder, but he never got to the point of a pack rat. But it was the nicest little pet. It was just so sweet. And then I brought home a chipmunk that I had tamed, sat on my shoulder and chirped at me, and
We brought home a pigeon, too.
I forgot about him. Yeah.
We shot.
Could have been, and now in this day and age, I wouldn't let my daughter go up there for love or money. But anyway, in those days, nothing bothered me. So this girl that was with me, Lucille, and we were up there, and the woods were really dry, so they were all closed to entry, So we're sitting there one day, and up comes these two guys on motorcycles, just burning up the hill like they owned the place. And so as soon as I saw them coming, I got on the thing, my radio to Andy, and I said, we have some motorcycles in here, and he said, I'll be right up. So they come flying on up to the tower, and they're down there, and they said, can we come up and look around? And we said, yeah, I guess so. Otherwise, I wouldn't have let him, but I knew Andy was on his way. So they're standing up there, and the radio, Andy calls me on the radio, where are those motorcycle guys right now? I said, they're standing here alongside of me. So when I got off the radio, he said, did you report us? I said, yeah, you weren't supposed to be in here. And he said, well, we just went around the gate. I said, yeah, you went around the gate. Think about it, Funny. Every time I think funnier, I think
About
of
the fog. The time we were yelling through the fog.
fog never bothered me.
No,
Some
it did,
people
but
went nuts.
that 40-foot tower, the fog would come up right level with the catwalk, and you couldn't see through it. It was just really thick. And one day we were out there, and it's like being out in the water, the sound carries, so we were saying, hello, hello, and it was echoing way all over, and a voice right below us says, hello, and we just about jumped off the water. They sent the boys up with some water.
They probably were happy to hear your voice or our voice or something so they could find their way. But
Yeah, because Walt Swenson, one winter, he had a broken leg, and he went out with his crutches and his cast, and a bunch of them went deer hunting, and they got caught in the fog up there in those hills. And they went across one of those railroad,
Trestles?
the old trestle, and it was over 100 feet high. And they scooted across that thing, and they were going to camp at the lookout, and they couldn't find it. And I guess they walked and they couldn't find it. So they finally bedded down on the ground, and the next morning they were about 6 feet from the outhouse.
well, what about that guy that was there the year before you? The lookout was built right on a real cliff, and the back side of it just went off to nothing. And the year before, this guy had come up there, he'd been down and off for a couple of days or something, came back and it was real foggy that night. And he drove up there and got out and went up the stairs and went to bed. Next morning he got up and the front wheels of his vehicle were hanging over the edge of that cliff. That's how close he went. After that, they put this big, long tree thing there so you knew where you were at.
You remember what this fellow's name was?
What was the guy that was on there the year before us? I should know that. Or we should remember it. He had stuff written all over the place.
Is that the guy that had the bear?
Yeah.
Got pictures of his bear, but I don't remember what his name was.
We knew at the time, because like I say, he had...
It wasn't one of the Robinsons, was it?
No, I don't think either one of them ever was actually on the lookout.
No.
Okay. Scary experiences. Real scary.
Yeah, I don't really remember.
My dog Daisy, I got a picture of her there too.
Yeah, that would be scary.
She lived up in the tower when Alpha slept in a cabin down below that first year. But we spent most of our time up in the tower. It's 40 feet high. And Dad brought some groceries, and the dog was following him. And she stepped back. Or I don't know if she's following her. She's already up there. I can't remember now. She stepped back to let him pass, and she said right through the trapdoor. She hit a couple times on the way down and landed on that old dry mud. Well, it was dried out mud. right between the rocks and the roots. And I thought she was dead, but they took her home, and a couple days later, they were making a bed for her on the couch and lifting her down so she could relieve herself and putting her back up again. And one mom happened to be in the kitchen, she heard this little thump, and the dog had jumped up and down by herself. But she was sure eating up the tension, so they turned around and brought her back up. Then I moved over to Baily a couple of years later.
Where's Baily Lookout?
It's in
Catholic.
District.
Okay. And that was DNR?
Yeah, same
Division of
outfit,
Forestry.
but there's Denny Noonan there now. And that tower is 65 feet high. So it was a lot taller, and I got so I could run all the way to the top until one day I slipped and nearly ran through the railings. I was running.
I never heard
But
that story.
The dog, after falling that before, she was really nervous about it, so she would stay up there until she just couldn't stand it any longer before she'd come down to relieve herself. And a few times she kind of wet the bed a little bit.
Oh, dear.
Didn't want to do it.
And I had a puppy for my baby by that time, and I took him up there too, and we lost him overnight one night, but one morning he was out there whimpering in the door. So
How long were you on Blaney?
I think it was just 1 year. Can't
Yeah, I
remember.
think you were one summer, and you were on Hull Creek, and you were on Trap Creek. She moved around. I stayed put.
Well, I went on Hull Creek because I could take my boy up there.
And where was Hull Creek located?
It's Catholic District too. It's right above. What's the name of the town where Ralph Alpero was?
Not Deep River, huh?
Yeah, it's down
Is
by
it Deep River?
Yeah, it's down by
Somewhere in
Deep
that
River.
area.
Okay.
That goes right past the little Apple store to get up in there. Used to.
Why don't you tell them the scary story you were telling me the other day about your brakes?
Yeah.
That's pretty scary.
Well, I bought Don's old car when our brother, when he was in the Army, and so I got his old Ford because I was without wheels. And I drove it up the first part of the road up there, and then Ralph would take me the rest of the way, and his Jeep or Power Wagon or whatever he happened to have, he had the Jeep, and the office had Power Wagon. And one day I was walking, I bought this big 3-foot long wagon so that I could haul my boy around wherever we wanted to go, because he was just a baby, and so we walked all the way down to the car. And I got a notion to drive it up. So I drove it all the rest of the way up the top, and Ralph came up, and he was spitting nails.
And that was
He was
Ralph
just-
Frink, wasn't it?
Ralph Appelo.
Oh.
And he was mad. He was really upset with me. That old car, the brakes will go out on it. You can't drive it down from here. So when it was time to take the car down, he came up with his Jeep, and he put a chain on it. And sure enough, we were already down the first hill, and my master cylinder went out.
Oh.
And I dragged him and his Jeep all the way to the bottom of the mountain. And it's all switchbacks the whole way. We would have gone over the very first one. We would never have made it at all.
Did either of you find any fires while you were up on lookout?
We had a perfect season that one year that I was on Packsack.
Well,
The only district in the state that had a perfect fire season.
it was,
We did have a funny fire the year before we started on. I think it happened the year before. Didn't Squally's fire start the year before?
Jim, yeah, but we
They had this old gal on, her name was Effie.
Any fires while you were up on lookout?
We had a perfect season that one year that I was on Packsack.
well,
The only district in the state that had a perfect fire season.
it was,
We did have a funny fire the year before we started on. I think it happened the year before. Didn't Squally's fire start the year before?
Jim, yeah, but we
They had this old gal on, her name was Effie Tisdale. And she was a cranky old gal from what I understand. But anyway, she was having trouble with her chimney, and she had told them that she didn't know how good it was, and she wanted to build a fire. And they said, well, don't build a fire till we can get up there and check it. They didn't get up there and check it fast enough, so she proceeded to have a fire. She managed to burn down the lighthouse and start a forest fire.
it was
Embarrassing.
Weird. It just sucked the paper and stuff right out the top of the stove.
They were still talking about it quite heartily the next summer when we started.
That was Squally Jim Lookout?
No,
Yeah,
Jim,
that's
And
up.
which district was that in?
That's in Raymond. That's up near Labam, out of
Ferdale,
Labam,
or
yeah.
she lived in Ferdale at the time.
But
Well, unloading it, and that's a 65-foot tower, and the wind was really whistling. And they sent some of the crew boys up there to help unload my stuff up there, and the wind put this kid's steel hat off his head, bounced it across mine, and went way out in the woods. You know, it wasn't until a day or two before I moved out in the fall before I found that thing. And he was so thankful because they had to buy whatever they lost. And Alta came up there because she got done earlier than I did, and she was going to help me get out, unload, or to get everything packed up to come back down again. And first thing they told us to throw our radio batteries over the side. Bad. You throw them over the side and they explode all to pieces. The next guy came up and says you got to bury them. So then we spent the rest of the time digging those up. But then that lookout, we got pictures. I got a picture of it. It has shutters over the windows. Big shutters that are hinged up on the edge of the roof, and they fold all the way down. And then when in the summertime, they lift them up, and it makes kind of porches all the way around. Well, the wind was supposed to be even harder that day. Now stand out in one little lightning stools. They put insulators on these little stools so we could answer the telephone in bad weather, or so if we would get struck by lightning. And I was trying to stand on that thing to reach those wing nuts on that thing, and the wind blew me off the stool and out to grab me. I'd have gone over the side, but she happened to be there. From then on, she helped me. One hand, hardly got the other.
I don't know how she ever did without me when I left home.
But that was probably the scariest thing that happened. But there were a lot of funny things happening.
Tell us some funny things.
No, like I say, always when I think of funny, I think of the year Lucille Mullen. I can't think what her last name is now. Anyway, was up there with us. It was a real dry spell, and we hadn't got down for a while. My mother always kept my clothes washed. We'd send all the dirty stuff down. She'd send the clean stuff back. Had it made in the shade. Well, we hadn't got off for quite a while because it had been so dry. So we were running out of flow on water. So we decided we'd walk way down to a water hole, which is a long hike, and it was straight up and down and over a horrible road. That last bit of our road was rocks. Great big rocks. So anyway, we took some undies down because we were running short on undies. Went all the way down to the water hole, scrubbed them out, and walked all the way back up to the tower, and Lucille said, I can't find my bra. I said, you sure you took it? Oh yeah, I know I took it. It's probably down there floating in the water, and the first time those men come, they're going to find it. So we turned around, we walked all the way back down to the water hole. We couldn't find that bra anywhere we looked and looked and looked. We got clear back up to the tower again, and there it was. She'd forgotten to take it with the first group of clothes. Right then it wasn't funny, but by the next day we were in hysterics. She was the most fun gal I ever had, other than my sister, of course, that I took up there with me. I always took a girlfriend so I'd have company and somebody to talk to, and she was really a fun gal. But that was so funny that day. And with our luck, it's a wonder somebody hadn't come by and found it or something before we discovered we really hadn't lost it even.
That first year that we were on Packsack, she had to go back to finish school in the fall, and I was still up there, still living with these mice, and the inside is not finished. It's just 2x4s with siding on the outside at that point. They did do it later, I guess. The mice would get up there and they'd race around the top of the 2x4s, round and round on those windows, right across my bed. And once in a while they'd hit my bed and down on the floor. And this one night, one of them let out a bloodthirsty screaming and hit me and hit the floor and took off running. And I turned my flashlight on, and it was the biggest spider I've ever seen in my life. Great big thing. I scooped it up with paper and took it out and dropped it, and you could hear it splat when it hit down 40 feet below it. I did find one body of another one like that later, but after that I quit thinking. I didn't trap any more mice after that.
Good thing I didn't bite you.
From then on, I let the mice have it. Run of the place. Up in Baily, though, once, I took a girl with me, too. I had a 14-year-old girl, Louise Church, South Bend here, and I took her up for company. And
You know Louise Bear. Yeah.
well, I forget now what I was going to say. Oh, we were in the cabin up there one day, and all of a sudden we glanced at the door, and here's his hand reaching over the door. We both let out a screech, and it was the foreman from the boys' crew. He had the boys working somewhere, and he sneaked off and came up to visit us.
Oh.
But that was a spooky thing too, because all we saw was heard this little noise, and here his hand was reaching over the railing.
Oh, I would not have liked that.
Did we get Florence's name on here or
No,
not?
we did not.
Okay.
Florence, you have to tell us your name.
All of them.
First.
Well, it's Florence Baily, then it was Swanson, now it's Cox. Now it's going to stay that way. It took a long time to get it right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you folks go back on a forest fire lookout again if you had an opportunity?
In a minute,
Oh, yeah.
if there were any left.
Well, how many different ones were you on, Florence?
Packsack, Baily,
Trap Creek. Old Creek.
Hull Creek, and then Trap Creek.
I went up and spent about a week or something with her on Trap Creek one summer. And I spent about 2 or 3 weeks on Squally Jim. The end of one summer, they decided the gal that was on there had to go back to college, and they decided they needed it worse than they did Packsack, so they moved me over there to finish out the season, which I wasn't thrilled with. It was a real modern, nice cabin, had all these fancy whatevers, but it wasn't Packsack. Had a propane stove and the whole works. I'd rather have my little old wood stove and put up with Packsacks.
Kevin was just an infant when they asked me if I'd take the job in Blaney. I happened to run into Gene Little, and I told him I was looking for a job. Well, I wasn't thinking about leaving home that far. I couldn't take the baby, but I couldn't take him up that year. So the next year I managed to lose my to Hull Creek where I could have him with me. He was 14 months old.
Didn't
and
have a
took him up
tower
there.
at Hull Creek. It was just a little building.
And when he got up there, he had a terrible cold, and I just was ready to give it up. And then he got over the cold, and he didn't have another one for the whole summer after that. He was sick his first year all the time, so it just sort of straightened him out. And the next year, it got a real early spring, and I had planned a birthday party for him, for April 21st, for his second birthday, and we went up on the lookout on his second birthday.
Oh. And what years were these that you were at these various lookouts?
First one was, let's see, Packsack was 52, and I think probably 54, 54 for Blaney. And probably 55. I can't remember whether I was up there for 2 years.
Did you go to Trap Creek before you went to Hull Creek then?
Went to Blaney first, and then Blaney and then Hull Creek. And I think.
Then you got married and
Then I got married and went back to Minnesota and came back again in the spring, and we were on Trap
I
Creek
didn't
for a
realize
couple
you
years.
guys are out there. See, I went off to the service.
Officially,
Lost count of what she was up to.
Officially, I wasn't the warden or the lookout because Howard spent his time up. They had the Hull Creek or Trap Creek. I think I got a picture of it, but they just had 4 logs leaning at angles together, and this cabin was about that square on top of it. That's all there was.
Oh.
So I didn't take the kids up there.
And was it an enclosed cabin or was it all open?
Yeah, it was just a little tiny cabin just big enough for his lookout.
You lived in a big building on the ground.
We lived in the cabin down below.
It was kind of a cupola on top of the ground house then.
No,
it was actually
it was just a separate tower.
Oh, it was a separate tower. Okay.
But it had a nice little cabin below. That little cabin below had one of these little stoves like she's talking about. What they call them, shepherd stoves. And somebody put stove wood under it to raise it up and make it a little higher.
That's it right up there.
And I was making breakfast one morning, frying pancakes, and I bumped the corner of that stove with my hip, and the whole thing twisted and came right down the pile. The dog went shooting out from under it, and I flew out the door. I'd come back and get the kids. I found out something about myself. I always thought that I would be, the first instinct would be grab the babies. It's not so. I jumped first, and I came back for the babies. Did it just instinctively without even thinking. But my little girl learned to walk up there in that lookout.
Huh.
Hanging on my wall in the kitchen. At the time I was up there, I didn't. But that's how it shows up. And it had really grown. You can see how the things had already grown up in those few years, and now the trees are up taller than what the tower
Find out
was.
where the road is.
Oh, no kidding.
And everything's really grown up.
Yeah.
But it wasn't
This is a
bigger.
larger picture.
Yeah.
Hull Creek, this is called?
Hull.
Hull Creek.
I got that because I had a child to raise.
Oh, huh.
Right over the top of the cabin. Stayed there for a whole hour. I just sat there and watched it. I loved it. I always did like lightning. It was when we were real small before I started school. We lived down on the Packsack, and the lightning hit him there a lot. My uncle lived up on a hill a little from us. We lived down on the river, and we'd go up to their place. Lightning was striking those trees down below their place. There was trees that corkscrewed, and there were split ones and everything else. And I loved it. So I liked it when I was up on the lookout, too. I thoroughly enjoyed it, even though it was supposed to be scary.
They always told us to disconnect the radio and go downstairs when it got really bad. But they also wanted you up there running.
Spotting the fire.
Yeah,
watching for the
you couldn't
smoke.
be 2 places at the same time. One night we had a real nasty rain and windstorm. My mother's down South Bend just shaking because I'm up there in the tower, and she just was worrying about me. I didn't even go downstairs. They didn't bother me that bad, so it shook a little bit. No big deal. But she was sure nervous.
It shook when people walked up the steps. That's how we found the hand.
So lightning really didn't bother you guys too bad.
Yeah. So a couple times airplanes got on my nerves.
Tell us about that.
They would have like things going on here in town, so they'd have these jets that come in and fly over South Bend, and they would be down in the valley below your lookout, And I got this one summer, that's where I got all my pictures. I got this idea to write to all the lookouts so that I could hear on the thing, And this one guy had a real sense of humor, you could tell anyway. Just just the way he wrote. I think he was the one that was on Bafla or something anyway. So he writes back and he said, yeah, the airplanes have been buzzing around me all day today. He said, if they keep it up, I'm going to go down and scoop them up off the stump with a spoon pretty soon. I can just imagine what he was saying, because it is kind of scary when you're looking at something flying below you, you know, and you're thinking, do they know what they're doing?
Yeah, the only problem I had with the airplane was when I was up on Hull Creek when Kevin was a baby. And we got a snow flurry up there. It snowed like a van for a while, so I called if I could go down. I could hear an airplane out there in that snow, out in the cloud. And it wasn't until sometime later that I discovered that I was the last person that ever heard that airplane. It went down someplace, and I never did find it or the people that were in it.
Okay, I apologize. He didn't say you could see.
The wife of the pilot even called me long distance from Oregon or somewhere, trying to figure out what had happened.
It says the warmest temperature at Packsack in 1951 season was 117 degrees in June.
At Packsack? Packsack where? 117 degrees? I don't
It
think
says, this was on the tower when that guy left
I think it was
the
out in
tower
the sun.
thing, and I brought it home when I was.
I think
Sounded like you've been in the sun too long.
Yeah, I think it's the thermometer must have been in the sun to get 117. That's unreal.
Did you guys have a weather station at Packsack or Hull Creek?
No,
or
I had one at Blaney.
Did you?
I even
I
had.
had to.
I had
I don't
electricity.
know. Did you have to report airplanes? A couple of years, I had to be a plane spotter.
No,
Tell them how many engines. So, you know, you had to guess. Really, most of the time you couldn't even see them, but
Did you have a little book that showed the diagrams of the different airplanes and you tried to match them up?
yeah.
I think we did that the first year I was up there, didn't we?
I know I did it somewhere too. I don't know what
A little bit.
was going on in the world at the time that they were worried about it, but I know we spotted airplanes. I still have my pin
But
they gave us. In fact, I wear it on my coat along with my forestry badge.
Blaney, I even had a.
It's not my original one. They made me give mine up. And mine said, of course, Division of Forestry. Well, I was working a few years ago. I was taking care of the banks in South Bend and Raymond, cleaning in the evenings, the Harbor Community Banks. And I was down here at the South Bend one, pulling some weeds out of the bark one morning right alongside, or one evening along the sidewalk. And I ran into a forestry badge. It says, whatever they are now. They're not the Division for
Department of Natural
Yeah.
Resources?
But I didn't call anybody up and say, hey, did you lose a badge? I wear it on my coat all the time. I've had a lot of people ask me, what is that? So I have it in I still have my little wings from being so I wear them on my coat all the time. People probably think I'm a crook.
Well, when you were an airplane
50-something-year-old
spotter,
woman.
you got some wings as a result of
Oh,
that?
yeah, I'll have to show you. Be right back.
Number company now, if I could think what their name is. I can see them, but I can't quite think the name of it. So I would come in on their work train most of the way in, and not the rest of the way. So they had this old phone so I could phone down the weather readings. But by fall, I could tell them exactly whether it's 46 or 47 degrees to be doing, how much it was raining, and how fast the thermometer was going, so I didn't have to go down the wet steps to find out. I was down pretty fat by that time.
See, these were my airplane spotting wings. This thing here came from Custer Battlefield. I crossed swords with it.
Which is the
Okay, the shield, the top one, says State Department of Natural Resources. And then the wings underneath it say she was an observer. And this was the airplane spotting job that was a job of part of the lookouts during the started in the early 40s and went into the mid-50s. When I was on Suntop, I had to do the same thing. Any airplane I heard, and I had a special radio.
We had to do ours over the regular forestry radio. We didn't have.
I had a special radio that called into Seattle,
Oh.
and I had to report into Seattle with any of that information. It didn't even go to the district headquarters.
what year was that, man?
51.
Crown Cellarback, that's the lumber company that's down below there.
Okay.
They were telling me that, you know, if you have lightning, you're supposed to undo the radio and go downstairs. But there's no danger because you have these lightning rods. And so they said, come on out here on the porch deck, we'll show you the lightning rods. And the guy's standing there, my boss, and he's going up and down, looking around. And he said, you know, we never did get around to putting any lightning rods on this tower. That made me feel real secure.
And that was on
And they never did put them on. That's on Packsack. They never did put any on Packsack, no. So I didn't have any. If it had done something, I would have been fried.
Oh.
I reported a lightning strike to me, and I saw this little white plume, and I reported it, and the guys went out and they paced up and down the hills and up and down more hills. And it just happened to be a bare log that was laying, and the sun was hitting it just right, so it looked white. It looked just like a little smoke in it.
It wasn't a smoke.
No, it was a log. They finally found it. It was a log out in a little clearing. But they all got work out of it.
One year we had this gal on Squally Gym, and she was just bound determined she was going to beat me to every smoke, you know. Well, I'd been there, and I was experienced enough to know when the train went through and a few of the different smokes like Raymond and South Bend and everything, you know. So one day she got hot on the radio, she sees the smoke. She just knows it's a forest fire. And so they called me up for a cross thing of it, you know, and I said, well, I've been watching it, and I think it's probably the train going through. It's been moving right along. She gets back on there, she's just really nasty. I know it's not the train. It's a forest fire. Well, they went out and checked it. Sure enough, it was the train. I guess she called me everything but black. I don't know if I even met the woman, but she hated me for some reason. She was just bound to she was going to do me in. And she didn't ever, I'm sure, admit to anybody.
Well, they had a fire by Cowan Peak that almost went up as far as the lookout, and he didn't spot it. But the guy that was on there, he wasn't well. And I don't know whether he wasn't looking, but somebody else reported before he did, and it was right under him. But he died.
They lost the guy on
that
Cowan
following year.
Peak.
Yeah, they died.
His propane
Not the same
stove
one.
or something or other.
No, he was heating the cabin with his oven.
Oh, is that what it
And there
was?
was no vent when Walt built that building. He copied the Forest Service plans, but he didn't put a vent in it, and this young guy was heating it with the oven and killed him. He didn't
Was
answer
it
the radio.
Glover?
They went and found
He
him
didn't
dead.
answer noon check. They went up and checked on him. He was dead.
Is that Glover?
Well, I don't remember. It was, I think the next summer after I wasn't around. So
I don't remember his name. I don't
was.
remember his name at all.
Don't put out a seal like that anymore.
I haven't seen it for a long time.
I noticed in one of those pictures that Ray sent me on the wall, you had one of them. There's a lot of roads right there kind of met, and then that was on the last one there that showed to go up the hill to the lookout, and then there was three other roads that went off in other
Ralph and I
directions.
hiked her down to North River